college football.
Back on Get Up, let's do a Way Back Wednesday. Let's go, I don't know, all the way back to last Wednesday.
And I'm going to say this, I don't know what you guys talked about when I went off air. The height doesn't match the tape. There are good things, and there are some good things. But the height or the tape, to me, doesn't tell you got a first-round draft pick or a top 10 or a number 1 overall draft pick or a Heisman hopeful. I think he's going to go into Ohio State, and he's going to struggle because he hasn't played anybody.
All right, and so in typically understated fashion, Jordan Rodgers is not taking a victory lap or anything like that about having been right. Good morning, Jordan.
Hey, look, I know I learned from one Stephen A. Smith that when a certain team in Texas lives up to the expectations that you put out there, you got to have a little bit of a celebration, right? No, I'm just kidding. Get rid of this. But here's the thing. Like, I don't want to take a victory lap on Arch because it's just something that I expected. This kid's going to be really good down the road. I think we saw flashes of what we saw last year. I think his mechanics were a little all over the place. Feet were a little all over the place. Got to give a lot of credit to Matt Patricia. The defensive plan was amazing. It wasn't the pressure. It wasn't the blitzes. He only blitzed on 4 of 34 dropbacks for Arch. It was some of the mechanical issues. Facing an elite defense for the first time that's showing you things you weren't ready for. Everything was just moving a little too fast for Arch, and that's why you saw those inaccuracies, 5 underthrows, 3 overthrows, a lot of opportunities to hit big plays downfield. Now, will for a second push back against the narrative that Sark was conservative. I think he did exactly what he had to. He limited some of the full field progressions later in the game, went to some split field flood concepts. There were a lot of opportunities for Arch to hit big plays downfield. His eyes were on the wrong read at times, not getting or not being patient enough with it. So a lot left on the table. Kid's going to be good. He just needs to develop. He's going to win like his uncles win. Between the ears. It just takes time to develop that.
All right, that's a good point. I'm glad that we got a chance to get that in, and I want to get your take on it in a minute, but I wanted to play the Tom Brady also. So Tom Brady, the greatest of all time, was asked his thoughts on what we saw from Arch Manning, and remember the relationships involved in the families and all that kind of thing. And Tom Brady thinks this could wind up being the best thing that ever happened to him. Listen.
The blessing is, I don't believe a quarterback, there needs to be resilience built up in the quarterback as well. So even though he didn't have his best game today and they lost, if he uses this to his advantage, Arch, he's going to be tougher for it. And he's going to have a better next game because of it. And I always felt like you've got to deal with a lot of adversity from a quarterback standpoint to toughen you up to be the true leader for the organization.
And so I think there is something to that, right, Lewis?
Yeah.
However it is that he handles this internally, externally, forward, all that kind of stuff, Lewis will wind up making a big difference for him in the long run and for his team this year.
There's no question. Look, having that resilience is that's what football is all about, especially at the quarterback position, especially because, as Jordan is talking about, as Tom is talking about, so much of it has to be done within here, in between your ears. And a lot of times that's where things break down for all players, and in particular quarterbacks, because then they get inside their own head. They start questioning things. They start seeing things that aren't there. And then all of a sudden the process slows down. Next thing you know, you're late on throws. You're airmailing stuff. You're throwing interceptions. And then it all compounds. And in order for you to not have that be the case, you have to kind of put this situation and put this game in a box and say, okay, look, I'm going to take the things I need to, and I need to move forward. You would assume he is wired to be able to do that. We don't know yet, and I think that's one of the things also that Jordan's pointing out, and that all of us have really been trying to point out, is we got way ahead of ourselves on this young man with like little to no resume to go off of, way ahead, simply because of what his name was. And we quite honestly have downplayed some guys who have a much longer resume and kind of put them behind him as if they were guys who needed to prove all the things that Arch needed to prove, and they'd already proved them. So let's just see how he does here in week 2. He's got a great coaching staff around him. I think he will bounce back.
Jordan, I can see you nodding along vigorously. Give me a final word on this before I move to some other quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think we just realized that Arch doesn't have elite physical traits. He doesn't have an elite arm. He doesn't have elite athleticism, but he's a good player. He's got a high floor. And once the mind between the ears catches up, all those inconsistencies are going to go away. So he's got a bright future. And some of those throws down the stretch he made were big time. So you still see flat of brilliance.
Okay, so we've got that. There's two other quarterbacks I want to talk about. I basically watch most of these college games through the eyes of, I'm going to host the draft in April, and I want to learn about these players. I watched your game on Sunday with Lenora Sellers of South Carolina, and I will tell you, Lewis, everything that you have been talking about, I know it wasn't from start to finish a perfect performance, but you see the reasons why.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Is that what this game is going to be like? But as Jordan talked about resilience, it was on display in the middle of this football game. He had a few series there, though, where, and you're sitting there going, okay, how's he going to respond to this? Then came the fourth quarter. Then all of a sudden the cape came out again. Then he said, you know what, I'm going to take this game in my own hands.
50 years old in June. He's that young. Jordan, the read on Lenora Sellers.
Man, I saw flashes of Cam Newton for exactly what Lewis is saying. The big, physical, strong runner that can run through you and run by you, I thought was so impressive. He can change a game with his feet. Now, I'll say he needs some help around him. Only 6 receptions by wide receivers in that game, only 12 completions. Nick Harbor had a couple big drops, one early on a drive route that could have been a big catch and run, and the touchdown where he's got 2 hands on it. You got to bring that down. The one pass attempt that went further than 15 yards downfield, that bomb to Nick Harbor that changed the game. That's the flashes of brilliance we see from from Lenora Sellers, and that's why I think he's put himself in the conversation of being a top 10 pick next year because of that.
Let me get one more quarterback in the conversation while I have a minute. LSU, Garrett Nussmeier really showed you something in that second half. What is your read, Jordan?
Yeah, I saw the best quarterback in the country, the most NFL-ready quarterback because of what he did at the line of scrimmage. He controlled the line of scrimmage. He adjusted protections. He changed plays at the line of scrimmage. He was brilliant under pressure, 5 of 6 for 52 yards, 4 first downs, only 1 sack, and most of all, he protected the football. That was his Achilles heel last year, throwing too many interceptions in bunches. He has elite arm talent, elite anticipation, which you saw on full display. And it was probably a B- game from him against the number 4 team in the country, and he got it done. So that bodes well for Garrett Nussmeier. I think he's the best in the country right now.
I never understood why he wasn't getting more talk leading into this season. And I think it's because what people become is to become fixated on some of the trials and tribulations he had last year when he did have a stretch of interceptions, and they forgot about who this kid is and just how smooth and efficient and how much of a field general he is. He looked under control and in control of this game from start to finish to me. And as far as him and Cade Klubnik, and I've seen Cade play live 3-4 times now. Look, this is no disrespect to Cade, but he's not in Garrett Nussmeier's league. Garrett's in a different level. He's at a different level. Garrett, Lenoris, these are guys you're going to be talking about as we go down the stretch. It'll be interesting to see what Drew Aller looks like. I hope I get a chance to see him live this year because he's another guy who's made tremendous strides. Carson Beck showed you something. Look, it's a great season if you like quarterback play in college football. We'll be here to watch it.
100%.
Yeah.
And in April, we're talking about 6-7 guys. Jordan, give me a final word. 6-7 guys that could be in the round 1. Go ahead, Jordan. Final word.
Yeah, and that's still all up for grabs. I mean, there's so many guys that are so talented, so many young quarterbacks. I'd look at a Ty Simpson that I think is going to get a lot of probably flack from the performance from Alabama week 1, but he showed some flashes. That kid is so physically gifted. So this is still up for grabs. I agree with Lewis. I think right now Nuss and Sellers are the cream of the crop. There's probably 5 or 6 other quarterbacks that are going to play their way into that over the next couple of weeks.
The games that have been played were played in August. We've got a long way to go, and we'll see where we wind up. This Saturday, we've got more great action for you. The